Calm yourself, return to your slumber.
Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on.
Run. Welcome to Podigious, your friendly eight-legged dog-best companion through the 2020 Digimon Adventure reboot. This week we're discussing episode 62, The Tears of Shakkoumon. I'm your host, Jeff Ruberg, and for my guest this week, I'm excited to welcome back Aster.
Hi!
And me.
Secret Surprise Touya.
You didn't ask for me, and I'm still here anyway. You're not escaping.
Well, you know, kind of like how Aaron has the mysterious curse of popping up every time there's a Mimi-related episode. It seems like you're getting us anytime there's something that's vaguely 02 related in any form.
True. And next week you're going to be here, but having evolved into a different form? No, I don't know.
Sure.
That's a different topic. But yeah, okay. It's only been a couple weeks since you guys were last on in episode 59. So I guess the only thing that's happened since then is Vikemon and Eldoradimon flying. What do you guys think about those episodes?
Well, I enjoy seeing the turtle again when the turtle returns. Maybe because that was also my first episode recording for this podcast, so there's something vaguely nostalgic about that.
Oh yeah.
It is very nice to have only needed to watch 2 episodes in a row to catch up rather than 8. These episodes have been surprisingly good, especially given the series it's coming from. I think that I still have like issues with the whole flow of the arc and the fact that we got up to Millenniumon and now we're kind of just meandering around. But well, I felt something, you know, like when they were talking about losing their homes and Eldoradimon like kind of futilely climbing a hill, having that whole Sisyphean storyline about him trying to get to a place he can't go back to and then tying that into Takeru's past. Like I felt stuff with that. They're
doing, you know, the stuff with the vaguely Kino's journey vibe that I was discussing earlier. They are kind of taking that into some kind of route now. I think, yeah, like overall, I'm still kind of concerned in the sense that, like, I don't know where things are going. But yeah, like the structurally wise, you know, kind of, it doesn't feel super focused and with a direction. But at the same time, it's like individually, I'm able to appreciate some of the moments that pop up here and there.
Leomon's alive.
Hey, you jinx it every time you say that.
He hasn't died yet. This is a record.
Bringing up the like in theory on paper, just hearing the words, I'm like, oh man, like tying Takeru's like nostalgia for his family being together into this Sisyphean turtle that can't return home and like is desperately trying to but never can. Like that is a very interesting connection to draw. But then it's like, it's so weird in contrast to how like Takeru is not spending time with his brother in the digital world. Like
yeah, there's that too.
It's and also like the moral of the story is very unhealthy. It's like if you can't if something seems impossible, just keep doing it until you, I don't know, injure yourself enough that people jump in to help you. I don't know, like.
Well, it's a very 02 type of moral, because the number one thing I learned from 02 is that if you're going to do something stupid and dangerous, you should do it with people you trust.
They'll emotionally support you. That's why.
Yeah. Oh, I guess Touya, were you excited by the real Monzaemon?
Oh yes, I was very happy to see my actual boy there. I forgot until they reminded me that there was a fake Monzaemon episode, that Wario Monzaemon was in this series already. I've forgotten a lot of this series episodes.
Yeah, well, I guess we should very briefly bring up the, I guess, follow-up to the last topic that we mainly talked about when we were all last together. Yeah.
I mean, do we have to?
You mean the 02 movie?
Yeah, the 02 movie.
I wish.
No, yes.
Yeah, since we recorded and released that episode talking about Kanaka's conspiracy theory whole situation, he did put out a response in English specifically to the overseas fandom. And we considered, should we do another episode following up about it? And it didn't really seem like it called for that. I mean, you guys can chime in. My personal feeling was that that response like it was less bad than I was worried it might be. I was worried it was going to double down.
I was like prepared for the absolute worst. Like
yeah. But I feel like the actual response we got, like, kind of like neither makes it better or worse.
It's a non-apology, and it had an extra bit of misinformation in there just for good measure.
Yeah, it's like if you there were parts of it that I was like, okay, he seems maybe more civil and thoughtful than I expected, but then also putting in conspiracy theories like out of the blue, not even connected to other thoughts, just like, oh, by the way, here's another COVID conspiracy theory. And it's like, what?
Like, arguably the most comforting thing out of it was the disclaimer at the top saying that this is not the opinions of Toei Animation.
Yeah. So
Which is also alarming in its own way, because then they could easily, like, you know, with all my fears of him potentially being on Ghost Game, it's like they could be like, well, this one's not the political one, so it's fine.
Mhm.
But I was actually reading a couple Japanese comments on it. There weren't many because it was kind of quietly done. But like one person was like, "What the hell are you saying by like saying that like I'm not responsible for overseas reactions, but then you respond to it anyway, and also pretending that like there wouldn't be a Japanese person who has issues with it."
Yeah, the fact that it was like on a completely different blog.
It's called the alternative blog.
The alt.
I think my favorite part is that he kept saying this is not political. I didn't express any political opinions, and my friend was just saying like the word is literally political correctness. There's nothing political about political correctness. Absolutely
not at all.
I mean, the other big thing that I really can't that made me so hesitant to make any definitive conclusions about his response is that he's writing in English in a language that he doesn't have full mastery over. So it's like, are these intentional? Like things that sound weird, are they intentional, or just his grasp on English isn't perfect?
Yeah,
so,
I didn't feel up to like picking apart the prose in it. It's just like the actual concepts of what he was saying still were just a very non-apology. But then, you know, it didn't really change anything, I think, like positively or negatively. Like it definitely was not negatively, which is good because we were definitely afraid it was going to make it worse. But at the same time, it's like,
You have to read meaning, not syntax in this kind of scenario, because he's writing in another language, and the meaning of it, I mean, what new are we going to say about it?
Yeah, there's like nothing we can do about it. Again, unless it turns out he's working on more anime, then we need to worry. But about this alone is just like, no.
Yeah.
He's been quiet on Twitter since then also. He hasn't said a thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's a little optimistic that it wasn't as terrible as we were worried, but it's kind of reassuring that the reaction has died down. Hopefully I don't know, hopefully he learns. But also, like we talked about in the last time we talked about this, like it was never really supposed to be about him. It's supposed to be about the ideas expressed and stuff, so.
Yeah, and like literally, I think something like day or a couple days after, there was this whole like thing that broke out on my Japanese feed about this one YouTuber who was saying some really derogatory remarks about homeless people, and everyone, you know, got really pissed off, and they were talking about like how, you know, he shouldn't be allowed, not only should he be allowed to say that, the media should not be giving him a platform to say this kind of thing. It was literally the exact kind of arguments we would have in English about deplatforming and all that, just all using different words. Like it was the exact same thing. So it's just like, again, this is a pretty global, concept-wise, it's a pretty globally well understood thing. It's just, again, not using the same words we use here.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's good to, I don't know, in the week since then, it's been nice that that's like in the rearview mirror and hasn't been occupying so much discourse lately. But yeah, hopefully it's a non-issue going forward. But yeah, I guess we should tear up a giant stump that certainly won't lead to anything bad happening as we jump down a cave into this week's episode 62, The Tears of Shakkoumon, aka, okay, this is a deep pull joke here, aka Aaron Carter's That's How I Beat Shakkoumon. Speaking of which, I am extremely grossed out that I looked up Aaron Carter and he has an OnlyFans, and
well, that apparently won't be a problem very soon.
No,
they've backed down. They're not getting rid of the.
Right, I was depressed about Aaron Carter's OnlyFans, and then I was like, okay, the one good thing about OnlyFans shutting down is that Aaron Carter's OnlyFans is going to get shut down. But now they're backing down, and Aaron Carter's OnlyFans is going to keep existing. Oh no.
A mixture of emotions, indeed.
Yeah, that's more of a roller coaster in this episode. But
when are you, Jeff? When are you opening the Podigious OnlyFans?
Oh God! Don't.
People are into collaborators now, doing crossovers.
Oh no! I guess OnlyFans is a platform that is inherently open to collaborations of a certain kind. Anyway, The spoiler policy for this week, like always, we'll be talking about everything in Crunchyroll episode, including next week, including the title and preview for next episode, and original Adventures Year 2 and everything. There is, in particular, one character that is teased in the preview for next week that is, we only see a small part of an animal that is on their shoulder that, if you've only seen the teaser and you're not well versed in some somewhat obscure Digimon, you might not know who that Digimon is. So we are going to probably, in passing, mention that Digimon's name.
Yep.
If you really don't want to know, sorry, but it's Valkyriemon. Anyway, but also we won't be talking about any of the titles and synopses for the last couple ones. I think we have like 63 and 64 that have already been announced. We won't be talking about those. But yeah, this week on Digimon Adventure : 2020 Square Back the Adventure of Taichi and Agumon run into Sora, who is helping all the Digimon she's met previously build a town/farm. Everyone digs up a giant stump that's blocking a field, but Shakkoumon emerges and starts blowing up everything until they eventually stop moving. And then Sora flies down to where Shakkoumon emerged from and finds ancient ruins describing Shakoumon's past and passes out while getting a vision how a bunch of Cupimon sacrifice themselves to seal Shakkoumon away. Soramon, oh god.
Soramon.
We went from Mimimon to Soramon.
Yeah. Sora wakes up and stops Wargreymon from attacking Shakkoumon and calls out and purifies them with Hoemon's attack, and then Shakkoumon cries a lot and everyone's happy.
Except the viewers, who are also crying a lot.
So I guess that's the big question. How emotionally moving was this episode?
This is probably my favorite of the Sora episodes we've gotten so far.
Yeah.
I was describing Sora to my friends as she seems like Kuro Taiki with Akari's voice actress, except removed from the context Taiki was actually coming from, because she has that whole like I can't leave people behind stick and going all go getter and all that. So we actually got to see the more emotionally empathic side, which is very important when your crest is love, love, affection, whatever you want to translate it as. Kind of important. So I think this was like the first time I genuinely felt like I felt a more empathic side of her that wasn't just tied to like protecting people because that's your job, which is very important for someone with that kind of crest name. So I like that extra bit of depth with her, that she's like everybody is like caught up in trying to solve it through fighting, and she's the one who kind of like cuts through the solution as like into thinking about like the reason behind the way he's doing this and his reasons for fighting and trying to stop him instead of trying to settle it through the usual fighting tactic.
And tying that back to what she said about the chosen ones not just being there to fight. It's this episode felt the most in tune to me to the crest that it's trying to convey, which is weird because I feel like they're not naming these, right?
Well, until next week.
We finally got Vikemon not too long ago, but I still wasn't entirely sure how that was supposed to tie into. God, there's so many ways to translate that crest. However they're going to figure it, however they're going to choose to translate it this time. But it wasn't entirely clear, so I am it's kind of weird that also this isn't Hoemon's debut episode, but we're getting it now anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's kind of weird how we're getting all these like episodes in between the debut episodes.
Yeah, I think the only one that actually had the crest glowing alongside the Mega Evolution was Mimi's, I believe. I think everyone else has been decoupled. But I think I'm worried that was just a decision in terms of like giving each character 2 episodes and not really a like it came from that top level. I want to give each character 2 episodes and not from a like the plot requiring, like I feel like it's weird that it doesn't feel like it flows naturally from the plot.
And like, I will be fair, the direct correlation did not happen in the original series either. Mimi's focus episode on the whole like Princess Mimi fiasco was several episodes before she got the actual evolution that corresponded to that. But the thing was, it was before, not after. So that's a little weird.
Yeah, totally. It made sense that like the emotional growth happened there and then
the payoff came later.
It makes sense for the evolution to happen after the emotional growth and not the other way around.
Yeah.
This series is on a little bit of a kick of like conventional heroes that fail to live up to their conventional role. Like with Shakkoumon being the protector deity that ultimately failed to protect his people. And then before that we had Olegmon, who was supposed to be the leader for his people and couldn't succeed at that. And something about that tragic element really, it grabs me.
Kind of like when we had Podigion too, similarly, like not entirely. I guess it does make sense when you kind of think of it more in terms of the Digimon they're meeting than necessarily in terms of the kids themselves.
I'm glad you guys liked the way this episode focused on like empathy as a form of Sora's love. To me, it felt strange, or not strange, but just like I feel like the empathy that Sora showed to me feels like. It's an interesting way of reframing what love means, I think, but also like it feels like such a thing that everyone should have. Like I kind of feel like if you're not being that empathetic, you're just being stupid. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think the part that stood out to me was it wasn't just about being empathetic, but it was it's in a scenario where like everyone's a little panicking a little bit and like caught up in the adrenaline, and like I don't think they were fighting him specifically because they wanted to like be violent about it, but just because they were kind of panicking, and like even they were still trying to go like stop, but she's the one who like really, really, really tried to like extra cut through the source of the problem like that, which I kind of appreciated.
Yeah, she was the one who was able to step back and like.
I don't think they were like fighting him because they wanted to beat the hell out of him. They was just everyone's panicking and everything's burning.
And this is also the series where they are very accustomed to just killing Digimon wantonly and not really needing an explanation for why they're doing what they're doing. Sora's the only one who's considering, well, your enemy here has a motive, and if you take that motive away, they won't be your enemy anymore.
I did think that the concept of Shakkoumon just kind of like being on a loop, or I mean like continuing to still fighting that fight that he was fighting when sealed away is a really cool idea. And I do think I spent the last week on vacation with my 3-year-old nephew, and I have come away from it with a lot of thoughts on children's media, and especially thoughts on children's media that primarily exist to sell toys. I am very frustrated. Not very frustrated. I just, it's disappointing that a 3-year-old attention span is much more entertained by things that sell toys than like shows that, I don't know, teach kids ways to play imaginatively. My attempts to sell him on Bluey did not work very well.
It depends on, the exact age group, the circumstances. I got into Digimon when I was 12,
Yeah.
So
right, you were at the actual intended target audience age.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Like, I'm considered a late comer, but actually I was at the intended target audience. Well, for the original series anyway. I don't know what the target age group is for this one, but
yeah, I think it's cool to have a show like this that seems like it's for a younger audience to explicitly be about empathy and like how this Digimon they're fighting thinks it's doing good, but
because I complained about this a lot. Sometimes a lot of the stuff that was Adventure in Zero 2 will legitimately go over your head until you're like high school age.
Yeah.
And that may not be a good thing in certain ways.
It makes Digimon perfect for Podigious because you can rewatch it and see things you didn't notice as a kid. But in terms of actually getting a message to kids about, I don't know, what kinds of people they should be, it's not always the best to be subtle.
Like, I think like especially like there are actually a lot of things with in Adventure in Zero 2 is very common. When these are things that people thought when they were like 5, and they carried it all the way to adulthood because they were so like stuck with it since they were 5. And they're saying like, this doesn't make sense. This plot development doesn't make sense. And like when I looked at it, or pre-approaching it from an adult, I was like, oh, this is like a extremely accurate depiction of like human psychological behavior, because humans are messy and irrational. So it was like specifically like exactly the way like real humans would act. But when you're a kid, you don't really understand that. And so like a lot of the things that like people would say was like convenient or bad character writing back then, like I looked at that again, like, no, I think that's actually supposed to be like legitimately realistic human behavior. But you don't necessarily know that when you're a kid and when you haven't experienced that thing. And so that actually damaged the opinion of the series, which was kind of a little frustrating. So there's like a double-edged sword to it, I guess, that you can grow up with it and appreciate it later when you're an adult, but maybe at the time it might actually backfire.
Yeah, I can think of a couple examples like that where it was maybe a little bit too like instead of following the conventions of easily understood media, it was actually like how people act in real life. And so it didn't fit into nice, neat boxes that we expected.
Now, Jeff, if you want to talk about children's media designed to sell toys and why these are more successful, I was like an instructor in popular culture studies, so I could go on a whole rant about things that appeal to our drives for violence, and I won't do that.
That might be better. Hey, even this episode was not about appealing to violence, okay?
No, it's unique in the series. They did not solve the problem by killing the thing.
That's true. I just want to go on a rant now about Fireman Sam. I don't like Fireman Sam.
Fireman Sam? What is that?
I've never heard of it.
I don't know how old. I think it might be like a reboot of an older thing. I mean, I never actually thought to look it up on Wikipedia. It's a show that is about I think it's based in Wales. Is supposed to. It's a Welsh animated children's television program, but it's just about like a fireman and the fire department saving people, and it's like the same cast of kids that keep getting into these disaster situations and keep needing to be saved. But it appeals to like 3-year-olds because they love vehicles of all forms. So it's like, oh, there's a fire truck, there's a water rescue vehicle, there's a helicopter, like all these different things that get pulled out. But anyway.
So it's like Paw Patrol.
It's like Paw Patrol, but a little bit less propaganda. Still slightly propaganda. But yeah. Paw Patrol is much more engaging and interesting, I have to say.
Remember, kids, all dogs go to heaven except for the class traitors in the Paw Patrol.
Oh boy. Well, back to the Digimon episode. One thing I did not like about the episode is it felt a little bit frustrating that like as soon as Shakkoumon appears and starts fighting things, or like shooting laser beams in the air, Taichi's first thought is that Digimon fighting something? And it felt like that insight he had was the whole thing that it took Sora the whole episode to figure out. And so it felt a little bit strange that it's like we get this whole like thing with her seeing these flashbacks, seeing the ruins, and then eventually coming to this conclusion and then trying to calm Shakkoumon down. And then it's like, Taichi didn't, I thought he got that on the first try, like 10 minutes ago. I guess not. Okay. I don't know. I mean, you didn't know the details, and I guess
I think it's something you had to have like an intimate understanding of, especially when everyone's panicking and running around in circles.
And I guess Starlight Explosion calms down Digimon. I don't know.
Yes, that is actually a thing. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this series has been extremely in touch with its null lore.
I have not read the Hoenn lore in years.
No, because I specifically remember like when Hoenn's first. Oh goodness, I probably shouldn't start going into this, but when Hoenn first appeared and used Starlight Explosion, everybody was like, "Oh, thank God, it's actually a correct application of the attack." I think you know what I'm referring to, because it is supposed to be grains. And it is supposed to be a purification attack, which is what it was used as last time and what it was used this time. And that was there was a lot of relief on the part of like, oh, it's actually a correct application.
So I'm looking at like the Wikimon description of the attack, and like you said, it's grains. What does golden grains mean?
Well, it looked kind of like stardust kind of powder, right?
Oh, okay. Not like wheat?
No.
Hoenn is a fertility god now and causes crops to grow.
I was like, yeah, is Hoenn just like, you're building a farm, here's some grain? I don't know. Oh, I thought it was really cool how I guess it's been a while since we've run into ruins, and the fact that it was always Taichi that was magically reading ruins felt very like he's the one chosen child. So it was nice to get other characters magically reading ruins.
They all have digivices, so they are theoretically capable of doing it. It just happened to be Taichi up until now for some reason.
Because he's still used as like the viewpoint and framing character, which I mean, I guess that's why he's the one that has the thought of that Digimon is fighting something, because that's really there for the viewer's benefit to build up to Sora's discovery.
Right. I guess that's what his use, why he keeps showing up in every single episode these days, because like he's observing them. kind of.
Right, which I think was handled so much better in this episode and last episode, where like the episode starts with us following him and then he comes across Takeru last episode and Sora this episode. That felt so much better than the slew of episodes we got recently, where it was like we thought it was a different character's episode, and then surprise, Taichi.
Showing up where you least expect or want him. The beauty school? Really?
Or him showing up in the literal last minute and then being like, haha, as you know, I'm just everywhere. I am all that has ever been and ever will be in this Digimon universe. I am Taichi Omega. I am the Alpha and Omega.
The final boss will just be Taichi.
Oh no.
Taichi will be fighting himself.
That'll be a hell of a plot twist.
You joke about that, but like, Could be like Omegamon's award or something.
Okay, I think Sanpei Yuko has to get better before we can even talk about that.
Please, no more Omegamons. We just had a whole Omegamon booster set. I can't deal with it anymore. I'm nauseous from Omegamon.
I know this is... I'm afraid of cursing the podcast and Adventure 2020 by saying this, because I know like 30 episodes ago I was like, oh my god, so much Omegamon, I hate Omegamon. But the booster set has made me kind of love Omegamon again. I really like all these different Omegamons. They're really cool.
Was that before or after you paid $45 for each copy?
Okay. I think they were only 30. I bought I think 3 copies of the booster set 1 Omnimon, which is not the most expensive.
I have I'm not going to call it an unpopular opinion, but probably a very obscure opinion regarding Omegamon, which is that I don't mind him if they use it in a context that's actually feels meaningful, which, instead of just pulling him out because he's cool and, very famous and all that.
Yeah.
The 2 things about our war game that kind of pointed out what Omegamon is good at. One thing is that he's very good at taking out a lot of targets that are like how it was like shooting out all the Diabomon in our war game, taking it just like bam 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 bam, like anytime there's like a surrounding it. So if they make use of that, that's a good specialty. So I'm like, okay, if it's that, I'm cool. The other thing was the more meaningful thing about our war game, which is Omegamon and any power related to him, which was in the second 02 movie. Which is when everybody works together, like everybody across the internet or in the village or whatever brings their power together, then it has meaningful resonance. So those are like the 2 contexts in which I'm like super cool with Omegamon. Other than that, it just feels like milking.
Yeah.
In this series, he feels a bit more like Susanomon to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think really like the first appearance was novel and shocking enough that to me doesn't need to be the most explained, because it was so exciting in and of itself. But it's really the one versus oh god, what was it called?
Nizegmon?
Yeah. That one was the one where it was like, this is just the polar opposite of what Aster was describing.
Yeah.
Oh no, we've ridden ourselves into a corner. What do we do? Omegamon, just hit the button.
Didn't Watanabe actually got like pissed at the fact that they were overusing Omega-1 at some point.
Oh, but now I'm just thinking about how the BT1 Omegamon or Omnimon in the card game, how it counters the Diabormon mechanics so well. Oh, it's so good. Such a cool game.
Well, that's because Digika is very clever.
Yeah.
And very expensive. Again, my Hexorb Sorceress deck in Vanguard, that lead boss card, it's down to 99 cents for each copy. Moving on from the Susanomon thought that I had, his use in this series, Omegamon, I feel, is more like that consolidation where they try to use him as representative of everybody's power, but it doesn't really feel like everybody working together at all. But that thought put me on a track where I remembered, okay, Neymon in this episode, every time he opens his mouth, I get whiplash because it's not the Neymon that I know.
It's the same voice actor.
But it's totally different character.
I kept getting so confused because in most of the times Neymon was talking, Junkmon was next to him, and I got so thrown off that I thought it couldn't be Neymon, that I thought Junkmon was talking, and that doesn't make sense either, but I kept being confused.
I think it is, I said this several times already, but it is nice that we are having recurring Digimon friends to have a proper attachment to. And
yeah.
That they keep coming back.
This episode, though, because of the close proximity to last week's episode, it felt frustratingly contrived how last week Takeru ran into all the Digimon that Takeru was run into previously, and this episode Sora ran into all the Digimon that Sora has run into previously, and it was literally like, oh, here are the Palmon from the Palmon episode, here are the Funbeamon from the Funbeamon episode, and like the Junkmon from, it was literally just like, and I guess that also applied for the Koshiro episode in the sense that like it was happening at the place where Outlook Kabutorimon premiered with the Waymon when Kabutorimon premiered. Like it was also a kind of reunion of Koshiro episodes, but it feels more contrived when it's like literally groups of Digimon, I think.
Maybe they are all actually in a virtual reality that revolves around themselves. Wait, they are.
They literally are.
Well, because Touya slandered the Digika, I'm pasting the cute new Pulsemon in BT7. He's so cute. You can't dislike this game. He's so cute.
He is very cute. I will give you that.
All right, let's move into some 3-word reviews. First off, Atreus Hoffman said, Sora Adventure DX.
At Andy Lucas OE, there is Bearmon.
At Joseph Snosif, good for Sora.
Yay.
Good job, golf clap. Dak and Jaxter said, Shakoumon's Nam flashbacks.
That's terrible.
At GigaDramon22, fear my laser face.
At Megadramon22, loves lasers lost. A wordplay of Love's Labors Lost by Bill Shakespeare.
Okay, wait. So this I wasn't sure about. Do people actually seriously refer to him as Bill Shakespeare, or is that a joke?
I think that's a joke. I've never heard.
I mean,
I've never heard
it's
this.
valid in
It's
the
valid?
context of the English language. I refer to one of our Supreme Court justices as Biff.
Well, that's just truth. PDX Anime said, another mess Sorasode.
At Borden Vigil, Nam on Appreciation Day.
Calm your soul, return to your slumber.
Okay, wait. It was weird having him with the what's that thing called? Gohei, the shrine staff thing.
Shinto shaky object.
Yeah, he's Shakkoumon Miko mode.
He has. I mean, I like that his reflexive response to something firing lasers at his establishment is to start worshiping it as his new god.
That's relatable.
At Marcolo Anici, I don't know. Fine, but sad?
At C.R. McRae said, not morning person. Yeah, Shakoumon's definitely not a morning person.
At Austin LC23, Phoenixmon Undefined Powers. I actually forgot, like, before reading these notes, that Hoenmon's English dub name is Phoenixmon because Hoenmon has not really been in a lot of anime, so I haven't like gotten used to the dub name yet. So
they're not even consistent about it because like in Digimon All-Star Rumble, I think she was called Hoenmon.
And like I'm familiar with the whole, so it's just like I don't even think about it, you know?
Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm getting even more confusing whiplash recently with bouncing between the English version of the card game and the show that use different things, but also Phoenixmon in the card game, I haven't seen tons of play.
Yeah.
So it's not fresh on my mind. So I was surprised too.
It's because it's a bad card.
Wow.
Rude.
It's in one deck that I want to try out some more.
At TP46750514, is that finale?
I don't know what they're referring to that, like with the preview, because the preview definitely doesn't seem like a finale either. But I guess we're definitely heading towards some kind of finale.
Yeah, we've got 4 episodes left in the season.
Apparently.
I don't know,
And then something
but
new.
Well, maybe something allegedly. I don't even know anymore. This anime has like I've ceased to have any expectations, positive or negative, about this anime because I don't know what to think. Like I've had this like thesis about how like every Digimon anime, like its main evolution gimmick has to do with its like meaningful theme, and because like this one seems to have the evolution gimmick of like God even knows. that seems to be the modus operandi of this anime as well. Just anything could happen.
Patamon Shinka Pegasmon. Why?
I don't like how Patamon now, whenever he evolves into Angemon, has wings already. I don't like that. It looks weird. How does that, Esther, how does that apply to Atmon? I'm curious how you think about that.
Because it's the relationship between humanity and technology and like how they can coexist together. So in the halfway mark, you have the inserting bioenergy into the Appli drive.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if this series, like, if there was no ending at all, it just stopped one day and the next day, Ghost Game.
Oh no. I mean, I recently started watching the new Shaman King reboot that only a couple weeks ago dropped on Netflix.
Finally.
Yeah, finally outside Japan. But, you know, like, that's how I remember the original anime ending. Just, okay, that's the end. Goodbye. Ursam Rebecca said, love Farmer Bearmon.
At Agumonger, better Sora episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 competing tweets in here. 2 3-word reviews that are polar opposites. We have another meh Sora-sode and better Sora episode.
I guess it depends on what you want out of Sora as a character in this series.
Yeah, I think my favorite of all of her episodes is the volcano one.
Volcano one was good too.
I like this one better.
But yeah, I guess like I said, it depends on what you want of her out of a character.
Yeah.
I just know that PDX Anime and Agumonger now have to fight to the death.
Oh no.
Because conflicting opinions cannot exist.
After we just discussed how not everything needs to be a fight, Toya's like, fight to the death. Moving on to some listener comments and questions. First off, from Andy Lucas OE, can't help but feel like Sora should have stood atop Phoenixmon and sang 1,000 words from Final Fantasy X-2 to Shakkoumon. IDKY, but that's all I could think of during the end of the episode since she found the Dogu artifact, Dressphere, under the giant machine, Vegnagun, with memories from the ghost of Cupimon, Elene, that made a sacrifice during a giant war in the name of love. I really liked this connection to Final Fantasy X-2 because this is kind of a big spoiler.
We're about to spoil Final Fantasy X-2.
It's been at least 15 years.
Oh, no, not for Final Fantasy X or X-2. The the Great Catastrophe has been revealed in V-Jump by this point. I'll have a link to the news if you want to go look it up, but I don't think we should mention what it is. But it definitely reminded me of some things adjacent to this comment. So, yeah. Anyway, Gigimon22 said, no Armadillomon? That's disappointing. I feel like it would have been a cool thing to have Shakkoumon de-digivolve back to Roki form to find a different form of rest. 02 fans will be excited, and new fans, if 02 happens again, will be like, oh, I know this guy. Oh, well.
Okay, first of all, I want to get on the table that we have two 02 fans right here, and I don't know if that would have helped anything.
I feel like it would have been sacrilegious to for it only to be Armadillomon and no Patamon.
Well, I mean, I could kind of, there's a certain degree I could kind of deal with, and actually there was a lot of Japanese speculation that they might have Urawa Megumi, who voiced Armanimon in the original series of 02, to voice, because, they've been getting all these voice actors back in, tributes and pseudo-tributes and all that, but I guess she's working on the 02 movie or something, because Shakkoumon was not voiced by anybody at all, which was apparently kind of disappointing for a lot of people. I was reading, the tweets on that. But, I don't know if making a tribute in that way would have really helped anything. For me, I do ultimately see it as something different, and also, no, I'm not into the idea of 02 happening again. Please, let's not do that. So, I don't know if it would have really made me positively or negatively feel anything about that. Especially since, as you said, with the whole theme of Jogras is the whole point is that you need both of them. And even next week we're getting Valkyriemon, right? And there is some attachment some 02 fans have to that because it's technically an evolution of Sylphimon. But I think it's kind of this weird feeling of every time a Digimon that appeared in an earlier series in a major role comes up, obviously I end up inevitably thinking about what happened in the original series. When Valgrimmon came out, I kept thinking of Koichi. And, depending on the context, sometimes I'm just I just keep thinking about how much better they did it back then. but I don't know, it's weird. The associations I make, I make the association, but I don't know if it makes me feel better, is how I would put it.
I feel like this was fan service, but by just having Shakkoumon there, I feel like it was fan service to 02 fans.
Yeah, I mean, that alone.
And I like how, especially in contrast to the Valgrimmon Valgrimmon felt like it was just a Digimon that flew, and there was no, I feel like it didn't really add much to have Valgrimmon there, but this Shakkoumon, we got to kind of see the lore, not Digimon lore, but the actual real life lore connection to Shakoumon's namesake.
This is kind of funny, but at the end, Koshiro was saying, he's talking about how Shakkoumon, there are Digimon who are normally seem calm but get really scary when they're angered. I'm just that's Takaro and Iori in a nutshell. Maybe we should be glad that their Shakkoumon is only possible when both of them get over their anger issues, which was the whole point of their whole 3-episode arc together.
The characters I really want to see a dark evolution for, Iori and Takaru dark jogressing together.
That's scary. Okay, the 02 Jogo Digimon are scary and terrifyingly powerful, and Imperial Digimon could blow up a whole village, and that's the whole point of his character, that he's a really savage, uncontrollable dragon that could blow up a village, and the only reason he doesn't is because his partners are two of the nicest boys on the planet. So I think we should be really thankful that the 02 kids are as nice as they are.
And since it already came up, I'm going to jump down this rabbit hole that you have presented to me. I don't want a 02 anime remake. I want a 02 video game, because this is the most video gamey setting that Digimon has ever made. Think about it. You could have a Persona clone where you're going to school and making social links that unlock different jogresses, and after school you're going into the digital world through the computer and crawling through these dungeons, and it's perfect.
2 of the most important voice actors are retired, though. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, no, I think a lot of Zero Two fans don't want to reboot, and I've had a lot of interesting conversations with said Zero Two fans on why. Like, it's almost like a pathological thing. Like, almost every single person who like I know who like absolutely loves a series, when asked if they want a reboot, they're like, no, do not. It's like, I can give a bunch of reasons why, related to how like Zero Two itself was about moving the hell on. So obviously, if you like Zero Two a lot, you probably don't want to like rehash things. But I think the biggest one is just like everybody was suffering a lot, and I don't think we want to see that again. And also, this style of the reboot where there's not a lot of character writing, and especially not character interaction, is like poisonous to Zero Two, where the whole thing was being carried by the characters and the character interactions. So it's just like, no, please no.
Yeah, like the two things that I would find really exciting about the potential in exploring Zero Two again or more or whatever would be kind of like Troy was mentioning, other Jogresses or dark Jogresses, like them coming together with the wrong reasons, and then seeing to kind of like reinforce the theme of the connections, to show that like the dark side of what an unhealthy connection could be. But like those are ideas that really could be explored in a completely new season. That doesn't need to be the same characters and story.
And I think like Touya also brought this up, like Zero Two, it was, I think arguably even more so than the original adventure, was very dependent on the era it aired in, with like the computer lab and the whole the idea of meeting up in the computer lab has actually been like executed again. It, like, literally, Cyber Sleuth's producer said that he literally based the detective agency off Zero Two's computer lab. And then like Atmon also had like the basement under the bookstore. And like those kinds of, all the substantial ideas from Zero Two that were really good have generally already been executed elsewhere in other places in this franchise.
Oh man, like, all right, so I don't want any more actual modern day Adventure Zero Two sequels or follow-ups. I'm good. We don't need no more tries, no more Kizunas. But just thinking about the fact that they needed to unlock the gate to the digital world by pointing their Digivice at a computer screen. Today, you could point the Digivice at your smartphone.
Well, the Digivice is the smartphone in Kizuna, so I don't know what you're saying about that. Kizuna and, presumably the new movie take place in 2010. So I think that's still relatively period appropriate, but if you have to reboot it into like the 2020 era, that is definitely going to change things.
Yeah, I don't want a Zero Two reboot.
Yeah, no. Like the only way a Zero Two reboot it would have to have completely different priorities than this show has, and like, yeah, it would have to be a completely different thing, and like at that point, why even do it?
I don't think their faces even sell enough to have merch and stuff sell, even if it's completely different characters. Like they Zero Two sells, but it doesn't have that level of name value. Like it's like when you look at a graph of like the popularity of all the series, like Zero Two is certainly high, especially in comparison to some of the later stuff. But then you see Adventure, and it's like all the way up there. There's like a huge gulf in difference between the two, you know?
Well, hopefully we don't get the Darkest Timeline version, which is just like a different Adventure reboot every year.
Speak it not.
Yeah. Well, Dagon Jaxter said, I like the central conflict of Shakkoumon being a relic mentally trapped in the past conflict, and he just needed some emotional support. The recent slew of less violent resolutions is much appreciated. So having said that, it would also be nice to see Phoenixmon get to actually fight. So as the first one besides Ty and Matt to get a subsequent Mega Digivolution episode, had you gone an alt like Blitz or Cress, which Mega would you like to see her achieve?
So I actually presented this to my group chat, and we actually were at a complete loss with this question, because like one person was like Crossmon, and I'm like, Crossmon was earlier in this series already. And then another person was like Ornismon, and then another person was like, I have trauma from the Frontier movie, don't you dare. So we couldn't actually come up with an answer to this question.
I think most people have trauma from the Frontier movie.
I don't remember Ornismon in that movie.
Ornismon was literally the antagonist, which is not a spoiler to say, because it's in the title.
Revival of the ancient bird Digimon or something like that.
Revival of the ancient Digimon, with the Hurigana over ancient Digimon being Ornismon.
Right. I mean, I just don't like birds, so...
What?
Birds are boring.
They are dinosaurs. You are bad-mouthing dinosaurs.
I guess it does make sense that if your crest name is love/affection, then having a Digimon whose special attack is purifying evil is very appropriate.
Jet Sophie-mon could be interesting.
With this Soda's characterization, where she's more go-getter, I guess it does feel like a bit of an incongruous matchup. Like, in the original series, that Soda was characterized as she was a go-getter, but also she was, like, having a ton of mental health problems, constantly on the verge of collapse because she was working too hard for for other people's sake. So that is a slightly different nuance that fits a little better. But then again, she didn't actually get home on the course of the original adventure, so it's all moot. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm conflicted because like I feel like the purification kind of attack makes more sense. Well, I don't want to say it makes more sense for Mimi, but I did kind of get a sense of the fact that like Sora's empathy in this episode felt to me more like a Mimi kind of thing than a Sora thing.
Yeah, it's hard to say because you look at the crest names. Purity meaning like being true to self and all that, and not being like condescending or rude or anything like that. And then versus love/affection, which is about caring for other people and having empathy with them.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, actually, I guess like purity to yourself is kind of in contrast to like seeing. Like, I was thinking of it as like seeing through other people's problems, kind of like being direct with them.
I think there's multiple interpretations of every crest, and like even between Adventure and Zeratul, they would have different takes on the same thing. So
I saw this one as like a loving thy enemy message.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this episode, it was really just an allegory for being trapped in endless wars. It was an allegory for the United States being unable to leave the Middle East, and the need to understand the motives of those that are opposing us, and how we could really avoid this if we just sang Kumbaya together or something. I don't know.
Touya.
Okay. On that note, Joseph Snowsive asked, were you also crying at the end? Just me? I love this episode.
Yes.
I was emotionally sad. I haven't it's very difficult, infamously difficult to get me to physically cry at things for some reason, even when I am emotionally torn apart, so I can't say anything. But it was good, yeah.
Yeah, the only things that make me cry are like parent-child interactions, like stuff like Koshiro and his parents in the original adventure, or Ken and his parents. That stuff will make me tear up right away. But
I honestly don't know what does it for me, because even if I feel like I'm being completely torn apart, like I still don't physically cry at it. But then sometimes like even something that's like a little sentimental makes me start weeping. So like I don't know what does it. I think the last time I cried at Digimon Media was probably the Atmon finale. But yeah.
That's a big one to cry at.
Well, I was emotionally like wrecked for the entire last 2 months. Atmon was right because I watched it in Japanese back when it was actually airing week by week, when they were putting the episodes on the main website. So I was like on tenterhooks for like every week for the last 2 months. So it was kind of like the buildup of that, I think, more so than the episode in particular. But yeah, I don't know if I could say like I cried at something, because like if I say I cried at something, it's like I metaphorically cried at it.
I have a confession. I was keeping up with Atmon as it was airing week to week on the website with the 480p really bad version that they uploaded. Yeah. But when the final episode aired, I was like, I just didn't watch the final episode because I was like, because like my recognition of Japanese isn't good enough. I was maybe getting 30, maybe 40% of what was being said.
Right,
so I was like,
right.
I want to actually watch it for real. So I still don't know what happens in the finale.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do for the Podigious OnlyFans. We're going to watch Atmon together. Not safe for work.
This is what happens if we don't cover Ghost Game. This is what we're doing next, I guess.
I mean, I'm on board with every part of that sentence aside from the OnlyFans part.
Podigious After Dark.
Oh no. Well, Gagemon22 asked, will this quell Taichi's bloodlust going forward into the last episodes?
No.
I feel like his bloodlust has been very inconsistent. Like, did he even... I feel like there have been episodes where he's been involved and hasn't killed enemies, and it's just been kind of random. So, he could still do it. He did kill all those Algamon when I thought they were kind of not being the most evil. And then he was like, nope, you're all dying. So
he has like a quota he's got to meet of souls that he's reaped for the week.
Yeah, he didn't get any this week, so he's gonna have to try even harder next week, huh?
His kill count is dwindling.
Yeah.
He's very competitive.
Well, PTX Anime said, so I think this is another pretty poorly done Sora episode. I think her earning a crest or whatever gave the writers an excuse to say the real journey was the friends met along the way. To be honest, was there an episode where the crest was not found in retreaded territory? And
I mean, she didn't even earn her crest this week. I mean, this was just a general sort of fleshing out episode in general. I guess more to elaborate on the crest winning.
Oh, so did her Digivice not activate this week? I thought it did.
Oh no, Digivice did activate this week, I guess. I guess we're talking about getting the crest versus the evolution. Okay, I'm confused. But I don't know. I mean, I think, like, you know, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to flesh out this kind of thing. And also, like we said, it stuck out a little in the unusual amount of empathy. So I think there was definitely something, like a nuance that was different from usual in it.
Yeah, a revelation I had this week. I think the idea actually came from the Lost in Translation Mom podcast. They were talking about this episode and mentioned how, like, the fact that, like, Sora comes to meets up with the Digimon and, like, is rebuilding or building a farm with them and stuff is cool, but, like, the fact that all these characters are just following their compasses, like, and none of them are really choosing to do anything. They're just following directions, and then just kind of, like, they do have a point where they decide to do stuff, but it's always like, oh, we've been brought to this location, I guess we'll do the thing that's here. And it's very it's disappointing that we don't really, there's so little agency. We don't have a Genai figure or a Genai figure, like, telling them what to do. Instead, we just have the crest telling them what to do.
Even though Genai was in, you know, the original Adventure series, if you actually look at the original Adventure, and I'm saying this because I rewatched this last year, and this was something that I was, like, paying really close attention to. The kids are very rarely told to do things in the original series. Genai gives them information that's useful for them to know, or just, like, what's a next step for them to follow, because otherwise their other option is just sit around and do literally nothing. But he doesn't actually really tell them to do anything, and they take initiative very much so. I think actually the head writer for the original adventure, who we, like, very rarely hear anything from, he said specifically, I think he worked on Vanguard too, actually, but he said one thing that he always wants to make sure is that, like, kids are not doing things because other people tell them to. They're always doing it because they want to. So even though they're called chosen children, that is, and they even say it, like, multiple times in the series, we're called chosen children, but actually we're not really being told to do anything. We're doing this because we want to. There was a whole episode about this where, like, they, like, Sora has, like, about to have a mental breakdown, and then, like, Joe and Yamato have to remind her, like, we're not doing this because anyone asked us to. We're doing this because we want to. We are the ones who chose this to do the best we can. And, like, in 02 especially, where, like, 02 especially, there was, like, no guidance given anywhere. It's just like, this guy is, like, causing trouble and we're going to put a lid on that. And then, like, after they stopped the guy from causing trouble, the guy was having horrible trauma, so they decided we're going to help the kid from his trauma. Like, there was almost pretty much, like, virtually no real being told anything to. I think the entire, like, last second half of Adventure was, like, the last real thing they were told to do was go find the 8th child before the 8th child is killed. But, like, they're not doing it because somebody told them to. They're doing it because a kid is about to get killed if they don't do something. So I don't think there was any real, like, sense in the original series that, like, we were doing this because we were told to.
Nobody even told them to shoot their leaders with arrows. They just read a prophecy and said, yeah, you need to shoot me.
Right. It was, like, trading information that indicated that this was probably the best option they had. It was, like, pragmatism in some sense, you know?
Yeah, I think that that prophecy is probably the strongest example of it. But aside from that, yeah, like, in contrast, this whole arc has been them following prophecies, and it's yeah, it's a bummer to me.
I mean, I guess, you know, Adventure and 02 were probably the ones that were unusual in the sense that they had this whole, like, chosen one plot, but actually they weren't really that, like, following that much of a kind of, like, a prophecy or anything like that, as much as you would normally think. More so in 02, but still an adventure. And here is just happens to be a more conventional execution of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting nuance to the fact that, like, Adventure, the overarching plot is definitely about them being set up to be the saviors and everything, but, like, it's set up in a way where they get to make their own choices and guide themselves there, and Genai just, like, points them in the right direction sometimes.
Like, when you get to 45, which is, like, Adventure's biggest info dump episode, and then 02's biggest info dump episode, which is 37, it's like, oh, they actually meet the people who chose them, and when they actually meet the people who chose them, they're not, like, godlike figures or anything. Like, in 48 literally says, or they actually asked, are you God? And he says, no, I'm not. I'm literally just, like, this, like, thing. I'm literally just like the Digimon who I just happen to not have a body, and, like, all I did was, you know, in 1995 I saw this thing was happening and it looked like it might be helpful for when the digital world came to a crisis, so we recruited you guys. It's like a job application almost. Like, like, you guys seem to be really good for the job, so we picked you. It's not like there wasn't, like, anything more than that. And then, like, they get to the end of the episode and says that they said, what do you do and what do we do next? And literally they say, I have no idea. but I think you guys, like, I trust you guys to figure that out. Like, it's literally like admitting, like, we don't know any more than you do. We're doing our best. Hopefully you guys will do your best too. That's literally all it was.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way of summarizing why like this compass arc has been just a bit of a letdown
in comparison.
Yeah.
But I guess, these things only happen when you make comparisons. But then at the same time, this is one of the few plot points that's directly lifted from the original adventure with, like, the crests. So I guess it's fair to make that, complaint.
Yeah, and I think I think there's a problem if the whole point is to make comparisons and then make conclusions based, like, thoughts that you never would have had if you hadn't made the comparisons. But I mean, like, right. I think, like, seeing these compasses week to week, like, it's felt hollow. Like, it's felt like
a little bit.
The kids are just going random places and then things happen, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, something happened.
It's felt like they are following the thread in a straight line to the RPG town where they talk to everybody and then just find somebody who has a problem and then solve the problem.
Well, they made a video game out of the original adventure, so you're saying they should make a video game out of this one.
I'm not saying they should. I'm saying they already have laid the work for it. Like, the scenario planner doesn't need to be hired for this one. The scenario is written. It's there. Just place the NPCs.
I guess Taichi would be the one character you can trust in a party because he would always be in the party no matter what happens.
The one you can't remove.
Right. Well, I always hated I hated the games where you invest in a character and you give them equipment and then it's like, oh, they're gone. It's like, oh, I put the best sword on them. Oh no.
Oh yeah, that's a problem in the original Adventure PSP game.
Oh.
That's a serious problem, actually.
Well,
King Dragon sends his regards.
Is that a reference?
Yeah, I'm going to have to link you to all of Prosdy's videos. You'll marathon them all in about 10 minutes because they're like 5 seconds long each.
I mean, I don't remember which one you're referring to, but now I can hear the voice and what you said. So Austin LC23 said, this episode was meant to make up for Sora's poor treatment in the rest of the season. JK. Unless Shakoumon's flashback is connected to the Great Catastrophe, I feel like this episode didn't need to exist. If it's not, then couldn't Sora have gotten the crest in the evolution episode? And I think it makes sense in the sense that, like, this series is about these kids and you want to give time to give time to each kid, and that sometimes means giving 2 episodes to a kid. That's how I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like, there's episodes in Adventure in Zero 2, I would say also technically didn't need to exist, but they made my life a little better. So I'm not going to, necessarily say it was bad that they existed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like, I don't think the problem with this episode is not that Sora got 2 episodes. The problem is, well, if you think there's a problem, the problem is just how well it explores our character. And I think to a lot of people it explored our character really well and they liked it. So yeah, I don't think we should think about it like as a puzzle and like how you could have consolidated things and condensed things and had both things happen in one episode.
Yeah.
But I did find the question of like the flashback being confusingly like not explicit, whether it's linked to the Great Catastrophe or linked to Millenniumon. I found that weird. Like,
I was under the impression that it was from that the war that they kept flashing back to during the Millenniumon arc.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But it just made me feel even more disappointed and frustrated that like ancient war was built up a lot and then like we defeated the thing.
It was built up a heck of a lot. I say Millenniumon arc, but that's referring to like 50 plus episodes.
The entire series, man. Yeah.
And still feels strange. Like, it feels like we're still wrapping up loose ends from that in terms of like Seraphimon and Ophanimon haven't yet showed up, but were definitely involved in that original war. So
I think that if this episode represents an identifiable problem, it is a problem that is pervasive to the structure of the series itself. And this feels redundant only because it's covering something that has kind of already taken place with the evolution, but like the character growth was not as explicit before. And this is supposed to be an arc of like self-discovery of the characters where they are becoming the best versions of themselves. But it's very like nothing really follows cohesively in this series. Stuff just happens.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I guess that is like ultimately my biggest complaint. If I've lowered my expectations, for better or for worse, and I have understood that there are some things I'm not going to be getting, no matter how much I might ask for it. Which is like, we're not going to get levels of character depth that's from like Adventure Through Frontier kind of thing. But we are, we are. I would prefer it if the plot were a little more streamlined and I had a better sense of what to expect in the coming episodes. I think that's like the biggest complaint I have.
Yeah, I was thinking actually watching the opening this time that like a lot of eventual conclusions of the show in retrospect look so obvious. Like the fact that like there were so many scenes of just Taichi and Agumon in that opening, I was like, oh, I guess they were honest about that from the beginning. And we just didn't think they would actually do that. But then they did it. So like, I mean, I guess some aspects are just so different than what we expected of Digimon season, so we didn't think they'd actually go in that direction.
Anything in general, to be honest. It just feels kind of like chaos, no matter how you put it.
Yeah, it feels a bit like they're going for a totally different or a much younger target demo and like just kind of flailing in every way along the way there.
Well, they are. I mean, the products are marketed towards roughly an ages a 9 and up category, whereas the original series was 12.
Like I've watched a lot of kids anime, so it's like I can't even say it's specifically Digimon. It's just like I don't understand where this is going.
Right. Like I don't think it's they're going for a younger demographic, so this makes sense. Like it's more like, no, you can go for a younger demographic and still be more, consistent. And I don't know. I also wonder personally that like maybe I confuse things by expecting something completely different. Like seeing the like that Lordum episode in episode 5 and like wanting it to be a very different show. Maybe that was my own baggage going into it.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It would be nice if it was I don't know, more straightforward. Well, closing out this episode, how would you rate this Sora episode out of 5 stars?
I'm probably going to end up with one of the higher ratings out of not just the other two here, but also everybody in general. But I'll give it a 4, I guess.
I was actually thinking 4 as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm grateful to be on a normal episode.
I guess after all the baggage we've had to be through lately, just having a normal episode with a good amount of empathy and Shakkoumon makes people sad is relieving.
Yeah. I guess I share those thoughts. It just didn't personally move me too much, so I'll give it a little bit lower. 3.5.
Yeah, after what happened with like everything that happened on the last week I was on, I can't even say episode because it wasn't really about the episode.
Right.
After everything that like just happened, like my ability to be judgmental about anything just plummeted. Like I told you, there's another universe where I would be more upset about the 02 movie, but I don't even have it in me to be like critical of that anymore. So life turned out that way. Maybe I'll take that as a good thing, I can enjoy things that much more.
Yeah, I guess we live in the time until we actually find out more about the 02 movie, that it could totally be terrible and it could be great.
And Ghost Game. I mean, I'm willing to be completely enthusiastic about Ghost Game once that staff list comes out.
Yeah. Well, who'd your MVP for this week be? I don't have any idea.
The Cupimon were really cute, and like they were delivering all those lines of like, "Oh, Shakkoumon, this is the one thing we can do for you," and it was like the core of the heartrendingness of the episode. So I'll go with that.
I think I'll give it to Neymon with the Shinto staff.
Yeah. Okay, you stole mine. I was gonna give it to Neymon. Calm yourself, return to your slumber.
We can both give it to Neymon.
Of course, if I tried to do the frontier, I won't do that. I'll hurt my vocal cords. It's too high pitched.
But yeah, this episode was pretty popular in the Twitter ratings. I had a lot of 5-star.
Wow, 5 stars.
Emotions are good things. That's why.
Yeah.
I thought it was inoffensive. I didn't I didn't dislike anything about it. I wasn't in love with every moment of it.
I guess the highest was 4 stars. That was the highest percentage. But so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, next week is episode 63, The Crest of Courage. Whoa, who could that be about? Will Taichi, who is separated from Agumon, be able to overcome the harsh test? Probably.
Well, maybe this is why the series is ending in only 4 episodes. He doesn't overcome the harsh test.
No, he doesn't overcome the test, and he ends up in the bad place.
I honestly known from the TV Guide synopsis things that like there was going to be an episode coming up that was called The Crest of Courage, and I was excited to see them, to give them a chance to make sense of Taichi's like meanderingness and like give a good reason for that. But seeing Bodemon in this preview, I was like, oh, is there actually going to be like consequences happening to Taichi? Like maybe I'm getting my hopes up too high, but that sounds exciting. I don't know. Has the show had consequences? I guess
Not emotionally riveting ones.
It had a physics engine where every action created an equal and opposite reaction, which resulted in Millenniummon getting blown up and then a lot of Digimon losing their homes.
I guess there weren't a lot of major personal mistakes, or just ones that anyone can blame themselves over.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. It would be cool to have seen other baby deforms, not just because I think Koremon's the only baby 2 we've seen.
Yes, I think so. Valkyriemon is like pseudo 02 fan service, as I pointed out earlier, but not really. So
if you played the card game, you know it. Nobody played the card game.
Or Cyber Sleuth.
Or Cyber Sleuth.
I also have particular affection for Nightmon currently because of the card game. Because of Lord Nightmon decks.
Right.
Nightmon is cool.
But as Lord Nightmon continues to dominate the ET5 meta, I might come to despise Nightmon more. But I don't know. It's certainly weird for like what might this be? Like the like fourth from last episode, third from last episode, to be like introducing baby forms. That's very strange.
Yeah, there's
something interesting about that, so we'll see.
The series pacing.
Not just pacing, it's just where is it going? It's like following, it's like being on Mulholland Drive.
This series is just going to stop one day. There's no ending. It will stop, and next week is Ghost Game.
Maybe the characters become the ghosts of Ghost Game.
Oh god.
They never leave the digital world, they're just trapped there, and they become ghosts.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, enough Digimon. We're done with Digimon. Do you guys have any non-Digimon things you want to recommend to people?
I've been playing the Great Ace Attorney. I, technically speaking, I have followed it since it first released in Japanese, but I have a personal policy of not actually playing games like Ace Attorney or Danganronpa when they're only in Japanese. If somebody hasn't translated it yet, because it's a logic game, so that means you slip up on only one word and you can't answer the question now. So that knowing your Japanese becomes even more important. So I deliberately held off on actually experiencing the game through anything but Let's Plays until now. So this is my first time actually playing it on hand. So I knew the plot, but I am actually going through experiencing like the proper like pacing and gameplay mechanics for myself. It is very fun. I'm not going to say it's a perfect game just because I know people are shilling it really bad right now, and I'm worried about the whole like hype backlash thing where you play it up so much that someone plays it and gets disappointed because you like treated it like it was the savior of all mankind. But it is definitely very fun. It is very refreshing to play a game about Victorian Britain, and it does not hold back on talking about how racist everyone is. So if you want to play a game about that, you should. But it's very fun. It's also very entry friendly. If you haven't played any Ace Attorney, if you haven't played certain Ace Attorney games, or if you haven't even played Ace Attorney at all, you can just jump in. So I would definitely recommend it.
Cool. Toya?
I'm going to recommend a pair of games from Smilesoft. These are technically not sequels to one another, but they sure feel like they are spiritual successors. These are the Digimon Game Boy games we never got. They feel like Digimon games. They're for the Game Boy Color, and they are Mobile Monsters Telefang and Network Adventure Bug Sight. And these games, I mean, they're Pokemon ripoffs, okay? Let's be upfront about that, but so is our favorite series. Telefang, you may be familiar with already as the bootleg Pokemon Diamond and Jade Game Boy Color games, which were very badly translated. A translation is a strong word for what they were doing back then. It was basically I think they ran the script through a word filter. These are not Pokemon games. Telefang is a game where instead of beating up and capturing monsters, you impress them by besting them in battle and then get their phone number, and anytime you get into a fight you can call them from your contacts list and they will come running, and the closer they are geographically to you, the faster they will arrive. It uses like a variation on the Final Fantasy active time battle system. And you can also use your phone your phone is a special phone called a D-Shot that you can use it to transport one of them to you to follow you. So like they're called Denju, like literally electric monsters, electric beasts, can follow you around throughout the overworld, and then you can call others on your contacts list and they will text you and call you and leave you voicemails when the game is turned off. It's very charming. This game was only in Japanese, and Smilesoft is like, they've been they went out of business decades ago. But there's an English patch of Telefang that, like, it's very complete. I've been following this since I was probably still in high school when I first discovered it. But I think the only thing not translated right now is like the final boss battle. So if you play through the game and get to that point, you can wait for the translation patch to finish and just patch it, and you'll be able to use your old save and everything. And then Bugsight is like much more like Telefang feels like a Digimon Frontier game to me spiritually, but Bugsight is much more Digimon E in that there's a virtual reality network in the internet that you access, and you like dive into it, and there's these creatures called bugs that are digital monsters that you recruit, and you're like a hacker breaking into networks and stuff. But that translation patch is still super early compared to Telefang, but they're things that you should definitely have your eye on because they're really cool. They're basically lost media at this point. There might be a company with the rights out there, I don't know, because Smilesoft, it gets confusing with who owns what, because Comic Bomb Bomb was also involved in this, and Kodansha, and it's messy, but we'll never see these games like re-released or anything.
So there was like a notoriously bad translation back in the day, but this is like a newer one
Right.
that is, you know, not full of errors and trying to market as Pokemon.
Right. This is one written by people who actually speak English and Japanese, and I think they've hacked together a new font and everything so that it looks nice. And like the names are properly localized. They've gone through a couple revisions because I think that the first village you go into was called Tulunk Village back in the game, which was localized from Toronko, and now they're calling it Tronco Village, and I don't know if they found a source for that or something, but yeah, they were called, back in the day there were these bootlegs called Pokemon Diamond and Jade, and one of them, like Diamond version, just had this weird snake thing that they made up for it, and I think some Chaos Emeralds photoshopped onto the title screen and the box art, and then Jade version had the deer god from Princess Mononoke thrown on the cover.
It just seemed like a complete troll. Almost.
It was definitely, I mean, it was awful. There was a lot of infamous lines in it that the fan translation has cleaned up, like the battle dialogue saying some points of 36 lost.
Okay.
Although I think the more famous line is, have you had curry? And that one ended up being correctly translated. They were actually asking you about curry. The context was just hard to figure out in the bootleg version.
All right. I will recommend something actually tangentially related to Aster's recommendation, which is the Ace Attorney anime, because seeing everyone talk about the Great Ace Attorney made me really excited to play it, and I was really on the fence about whether I should just, because I've only played the first game in the series, and I kind of like stalled out. I think this was back when I think I was playing the iOS port in like 2013 or 2012.
Oh man.
It has like higher resolution sprites, but they don't animate as much as the original.
There was that iOS port was like god awful, yeah.
Yeah, like the thing is, I didn't know about all the issues and complaints people had about it while I was playing it, so I thought it was great. I thought it was fine.
Right.
And then I later read about it, and I was like, oh, I guess it sucked. Oh, I don't know what to do now. And it seemed like at the time there was lots of like there was no best version, but then it seems like the 3DS version eventually came out that was a best version, and then I think the Switch version is built on that, I believe.
Yes. All the current console versions are all good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, kind of like I also stalled out because like after playing one game, it's this weird world where like it's all pretty upbeat and positive, but also everyone keeps dying around the main characters, and I'm like, oh no.
Oh, Detective Conan syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Doom Magnet.
Yeah, so I took a break and then never got back into it because I didn't know what game to play. But anyway, so now that it's been like, oh god, like 8 years since I played it, I was like, oh, I do kind of want to finish the original trilogy because everyone talks about how great that is. So I was like, what should I do? So I decided to watch the anime to refresh myself on the first game. And I kind of wrote off the anime when it came out because I heard it wasn't a good anime. And I still think it's not a good anime on its own, but it's been great for like refreshing myself on what happened in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think let me put it this way. I don't know if it's a recommendable anime if you have not played the games. Or at least the first season. I actually have not seen the second or third season myself, but I have actually heard from people who have played the game said the second season was actually really good. So I think it was because of the pacing, just like how many episodes they had and how much content they were like trying to fit in it. It was just like not good for the first season. But yeah, I would not recommend it to people who have not played the games yet, or at least the first season in the first game. But if you do want to like refresh your memory or go over, or do you just want to see some scenes you like animated?
Yeah, like it's been great as like having a vague recollection of what happened and then seeing it all act out again. And I can, like it's very faithful to like the character poses and everything in a way that I think if you expected a normal anime might feel a little stiff and weird, but it feels like a nice fan service, and it's good for refreshing things. I don't know what to do actually about the that final case that was added in the DS version. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, because that I don't think is in the anime.
No, I don't think so. It's been a while.
Oh, that was the one that like it employed the new. They made that case to like it was like a teaser of the mechanics they were going to use in Apollo Justice. Was that?
It was basically a DLC case before the DLC existed. Like it was one of those things that they were doing to get you to buy the DS version, even if you've already played it on GBA. Actually, this was back when it was the regular DS model. If you inserted a GBA cartridge, that had already cleared the game into it, you could skip all the way to the new case.
Oh, interesting. But you still had to own the DS version.
Yeah.
Oh, so you had to have both put into both ports. Interesting.
Yeah. But it was one of those things. Like now it just ships with the game.
Right. I guess that brings us to the end of the show this week. This episode of Pottage was brought to you by Namon Farms Organic Produce. Are you sick of organic fruits and vegetables that are bland and flavorless? Then you'll love the beautiful fruit and vegetables from Namon Farms, where we personally guarantee that all of our produce has been drenched in Shakoumon's tears. Last week's Digiprompt was, what exciting Digimon design would look best with angel wings added? And my favorite response came in from C.R. McRae, who said, since the best choices of Beelzemon and Omegamon already get wing modes, the only logical choice is Angelimon, the Angel Anaconda character.
Guys, like, you had to understand, I got into Digimon when I was 12, so, like, all the theater screenings were already ancient history by that point. So it was like a 12-year-old me on the internet looking at, like, the history records of what that was, going like, what the hell happened here?
I thought I was in the wrong movie.
You know?
I mean, you were. It was a warning. It was an early warning sign.
Yeah. Just for me, I'm just like, what kind of lives did you guys live back then? Like in 2007, staring at like all the footage recordings.
My only recollection of that show was like falling asleep during Digimon or some other show and then waking up and that Angela Anaconda show playing. And I think I tried to watch it for like a minute and instantly got a headache. And I was like, nope. This show causes migraines probably.
I was like sitting there like as an American reading the story and going like, Americans are so strange.
Well, this week's Digiprompt is, what Digimon would you worship to protect you as a benevolent god, and why? I want to know why. But send any feedback to potagesdigimon.com, to potages on Twitter, or in the episode comments on potages.com. Check out the show notes to find a link to join our Discord server and share the podcast with your friends who care so much about you that they'll sacrifice themselves to seal you in the ground for hundreds of years, which is apparently a thing that you do for people you love. I don't know. If this is your first episode, you can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. So, Aster and Touya, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Always a pleasure.
Sometimes it's not, though. Sometimes it's not a pleasure.
It is for me.
Jeff, this is Pandemic Season 2.
I meant sometimes the topics we talk about.
Social contact with you is a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I feel the same.
Now, contact with some of the people that run this franchise, however, it leaves me feeling not in my happy place.
I'm doing my best. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, if people want to find you guys on the internet, where can they check you out?
I'm at Listriel on Twitter.
And Touya?
You can find me on Twitter at Touya and on YouTube at Maniacs Channel, where I am currently hawking the Build Divide trading card game for some reason.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that recent video you did that was why the Digimon card game is the best card game.
Yeah, recent.
I liked how it was titled Why You Should Play Digimon Card Game 1 week ago.
Yeah, I definitely made that video.
Yeah, that's definitely real.
That was absolutely the video that I made.
I'm not passive-aggressively poking fun at Touya abandoning Digimon.
If Bandai wants to buy a sponsored episode, they are welcome to. My contact information is on the YouTube channel page.
And thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back next week to talk about episode 63, The Crest of Courage. Bye!
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 And remember, never stop digivolving.
I'm a dream
Jeff, I am always somehow taken by surprise by how much of a phone gamer you are. Experiencing Phoenix Wright on your phone, gosh.
It was good for that, aside from apparently the sprites didn't animate. And
there was a multiple, like it was like a ton of problems. Like there were music problems, sprites didn't animate correctly. The way they did like transparency on the sprites was completely messed up, and like it's a mess. Yeah, it's a total mess.
I did kind of, after reading about all the complaints at the time, I was like, I kind of want to go back to not knowing about these problems. I didn't even notice.
I mean, I think if you've played it already, I don't know if it's like, die on a hill.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
But like, if you're recommending something to someone, especially now that all the new reports exist, just like, don't even bother, man.
Yeah, I even struggled through the first couple of years that the Final Fantasy Tactics port was on iOS, and it was the better PSP translation, but every summon animation just lagged for like a minute.
There was this is unfortunate that you didn't hear about it until later, because there used to be a decent iOS port of the first game, and it was actually based off the DS sprites. But the thing is, the reason why nobody talked about it was because it only covered the first game, and then they had the iOS port that came after it that was the first 3 games, and it had all 3 games, but the price is that everything else about it took a quality hit.
Yeah, I actually, to your point, Toya, do you want to know how I actually experienced the very first case of Ace Attorney 1? It was as a Java app on a flip phone. Which
What?
I don't know how I even found.
Oh, no!
Jeff,
I know what
Jeffrey
that is.
Podigious Ruberg. You know what? Okay, my recommendation to play Telefang is now specifically for you, because literally the main menu of Telefang is a flip phone.
Oh, no.
You have to enter your name at the beginning of the game, you have to use a phone input pad.
With it's not with T9.
Yes.
Right? Oh, no.
Incredible.
Oh, boy. Well, on that note, nostalgic ancient tech.
I can't believe we just still have zero scope of when the series is ending.
Yeah, I mean,
4 more episodes.
Supposedly.
It makes sense with how what was Millennium On? How Millennium On was wrapped up, that there's 2 that 65 and 66 could just be it. And that's the end.
I'm still unnerved also, just not knowing enough about the next anime, not even just in terms of the staff, but I don't feel I know anything about it. Even now, I don't know the voice cast, I don't know the staff, I don't know the premise, I don't know anything about it. And
it's presumably 5 weeks out, maybe at earliest.
At the earliest, yeah. And it's I'm my head is in my hands. I'm just still worried about the whole staff thing. And I said, it's ironic that I'm being conspiracy theorist about a conspiracy theorist. But I'm sitting here going well, on one hand he was disclaiming the political thing, and then seeing producer Seki stepping in for him just freaked me the hell out. And then V Jump even went in on how horror atmosphere it is. But on the other hand, it's he hasn't done anything in anime since 2009, and I don't know. They haven't revealed anything about it. Technically, we don't actually know the artist. We just know because we recognize the art style, but we technically don't actually know. And I'm just holding my head in my hands, why are they being coy about it? Is it because of this? Is it not because of this? I'm still laughing at the fact that blue-green Imperial Digimon is still considered meta in the current Japanese meta after this entire time, which is stupidly difficult to pull off, but apparently it is still viable. And I'm just how do you people not?
Oh wait, you mean viable in the Japanese meta?
Yeah.
Oh, and that those cards mainly came out in BT2?
BT3.
Oh, okay.
BT3 Union Impact.
And it's not even easy to do a mixed color deck to begin with, but for some reason that one is just holding on. I think people are stubborn.
This is about as long as the King of Knights Alfred deck lasted in Vanguard's first couple years. That deck was meta when it launched in set 1, and it stayed meta until roughly set 10. It did not phase out until a set after that.
I'm fairly sure that Booster 8 being 02 themed is specifically because Daisuke is performing way too well in the meta right now. There's been demand for a parallel print of him because of that. So
I hope he's not too expensive in the English market, because I might want.
He's a common card in general, so I don't think it's just he's too useful.
Oh, okay.
Being able to draw more cards is always a very useful skill to have in a card game, so he just happens to be extremely versatile.
And especially in Digimon, where draw is super limited.
Yeah.
Wait, have they still not introduced a Imperial Digimon Fighter Mode?
No, we're expecting it to be in the next one, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because that was the weird thing, because we thought like Union Impact was going to be the 02 booster because that Daisuke and Ken were in there and there was all the Jogo Digimon in there. But I guess that didn't count for them because I guess the new one's going to be all the armors and the Imperial Digimon modes and something about mixed colors. And so I guess that's the actual 02 booster now.